may lead some to believe that, maybe he's got just a sour taste in his mouth and, may want to go perhaps the Eastern Conference where it's somewhat of an easier road to reach the NBA Finals than, the Wild Wild West where there's so many good teams and it's just such a challenge to get through there. So we got him. We have guys like Hassan Whiteside, DeMar DeRozan, Mike Conley, Bradley Beal, Al Horford, Nicholas Batum, Pau Gasol. Even a guy like LeBron James has a player option, and Dirk Nowitzki, but odds are they won't go anywhere. Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo. So not the greatest of free agent classes, but still, some big names, of course, led by Kevin Durant. So, of course, free agency will begin on July 1st. That's when teams are allowed to speak with free agents in hopes of signing them. Those are some of the marquee free agents that I just named. But here are some of the more under-the-radar guys, guys who aren't necessarily being talked about much when it comes to NBA free agency. But, these guys could play, a pivotal role on their new team or, the team that they re-sign with. If they decide not to test the waters and stay with the team they're on. Let's start with number 10. We got Terrence Jones, power forward on the Houston Rockets, 6'9", 252 pounds. He's turning 25 years old on January 9th, so still very young. He's just a guy, just really hasn't been able to stay healthy. Last season played 50 games, season before 33. Only 20.9 minutes per game last year, 8.7 points, 4.2 rebounds. But in a little bit more minutes last season, 14-15, 26.9, 11.7 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks per game. So, he's a guy who could put up numbers and, could block shots, grab rebounds. For his career, per 36 minutes, 15.5 points, 8.6 rebounds, 1.8 blocks. So, definitely a guy who can contribute on a team. There's probably plenty of teams where he could have a starting role or, be an important bench player on a contender. So we'll see what happens with Terrence Jones. I don't expect the Rockets to re-sign him. He is a restricted free agent, so they will be able to match any offer sheet he receives. I think he's moving on, though. Number 9 on the list is Dion Waiters, another restricted free agent, so OKC can match any offer received to him. Was the 4th pick in 2012. Hasn't quite lived up to those standards. Still a young player, will turn 25 on December 10th. The 6'4" shooting guard, on the Cleveland pre-LeBron James, his first 2 seasons, averaging 15.3 points per game in his first 2 years in the league. With OKC, mostly coming off the bench. This past season in 78 games, 27.6 minutes per game, 9.8 points, and 35.8% from 3. He's just a guy I could see one team, perhaps overpaying for. Because of the potential he kind of does have. He does play unbridled at times, puts up shots that will make you shake your head. But, he can score the basket, still relatively young. OKC may move on from him, especially if a team does offer him money that, makes you look twice, like, really? So Dion Waiters, he is somewhat of an intriguing player at still such a young age, number 9 on the list. Number 8, unrestricted free agent Marvin Williams, last year with the Hornets. He's played 11 seasons already in the league. It's pretty surprising. Was a 2nd pick in 2005. Never quite lived up to those standards, but he still made a niche in the NBA. He'll turn 30 on June 19th, so in a couple weeks. 81 games last year, 28.9 minutes per game, 11.7 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, and a block. He's a guy who hits the 3-ball with consistency, 40.2% last year on 4.7 attempts per game. 6'9", power forward slash small forward, is someone who rarely turns the ball over and is a very solid defender. Marvin Williams could definitely make a large sum of money in what will likely be his last multi-year contract. As I mentioned, will be turning 30. Number 7 on the list, unrestricted free agent Brandon Jennings, was traded from the Pistons to the Magic in a deal that brought Tobias Harris to the Detroit Pistons. He's played 7 seasons in the NBA. Jennings, he will turn 27 on September 23rd. Tore his ACL about midway through the 2014-15 season. Came back, I believe, in late December last season. Ended up playing in 48 games combined with the Pistons and Magic. 18.1 minutes per game. Just never quite looked like himself. 36.8% from the field. 6.9 points per game and 3.5 assists. This is a guy whose career, though, has been, consistently good offensive player. In his first 6 seasons, he's averaged anywhere between 15.4 and 19.1 points per game, and 4.8 and 7.6 assists per game. Also, 1.1 and between 1.1 and 1.6 steals per game. So he's a guy who could put up numbers. Small point guard, 6'1", 169, still young. Could start on a lot of teams, including my Knicks. So Brandon Jennings, we'll see what type of money he gets in free agency. I doubt the Magic look to re-sign him with Elfrid Payton in tow. Jennings, number 7 on the list. Number 6, a guy who really hasn't played a ton of minutes the past 2 seasons. Mostly because he's on the stacked Golden State Warriors team where, looking to win back-to-back championships. That's Maurice Speights. He's an unrestricted free agent. He'll turn 29 on August 4th. The 6'10", 255-pounder, splits time between center and power forward. Last season, 72 games, just 11.6 minutes per game. Still put up 7.1 points and 3.3 rebounds per game. 3 seasons with Golden State, just hasn't seen the floor a lot. As I mentioned, just good Golden State teams, 13.3 minutes per game. But, if you equate his numbers per 30 to 36 minutes per game in his 3 seasons with Golden State, he's averaging impressive numbers, 21.6 points per game, 10.2 rebounds, and 1.2 blocks per game per 36 minutes with his time with Golden State. Those are pretty good numbers. He's developed somewhat of a three-point shot, went 24 of 62 from downtown last year. Great free throw shooter for his size, 83.1%. Speights is a guy who could put up numbers if you put him on, a decent team where he could be a starter or, as he is in Golden State, an important bench player on a very solid team. So, Maurice Speights is number 6 on the list. Number 5 is Evan Fournier, restricted free agent, Orlando Magic. The Frenchman will turn 24 on October 29th. Standing at 6'7", weighs 205. Splits his time between shooting guard and small forward. He's someone who could put the ball in the basket last season in 79 games, 32.5 minutes per game, 15.4 points per game on 40% three-point shooting on 4.9 attempts per game. In his 4 NBA seasons, he has shot 38.9% from deep. So he can be a sharp shooter. He's a guy, as I mentioned, puts the ball in the hoop. Can do a little bit of ball handling, but, not a guy you play at point, but he can handle the ball. Fournier, I think he'll be another guy who surprises many with what he gets paid this offseason. And, of course, a lot of guys are going to get paid more than anyone thinks they deserve with the new TV contract and the salary cap going up quite substantially. There's going to be guys making a good chunk of money who you may see as just average players. But with the salary cap going up, teams could afford to do things like that. Number 4 on the list is Evan Turner, unrestricted free agent, Boston Celtics. This past season finished 5th in Sixth Man of the Year voting. He's a guy who is dependable, always shows up to play. He's only missed 2 games in the past 4 seasons. Last season with Boston, the 6'7" small forward / shooting guard. Mostly off the bench, started 12 games, played 28 minutes per game, 10.5 points per game, 4.9 rebounds per game, 4.4 assists per game, and 1.0 steals. Turns 28 on October 27th. Another guy who was an early draft pick. Seems to be a bunch of those guys on this list. He was number 2, second overall. Sixers never quite lived up to those expectations, but, again, a guy who's found a niche in the NBA. Someone who's not a great three-point shooter. Just hasn't developed that shot, but he can handle the ball, and, he's a much better than average defender. Career 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Definitely was an important part for a very good Celtics team this past season. They're definitely going to look to re-sign him, but, teams, again, may give this guy a large sum of money that the Celtics decide not to, don't want to pay him that much. So Evan Turner, number 4 on the list. Number 3 on the list, a guy who's proven he could score the basket for quite some time, but just a guy who relatively hasn't stayed healthy. That's Eric Gordon from the New Orleans Pelicans. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's now played 8 years in the league, starting with the Clippers, now with the Pelicans. He turns 28 on Christmas Day. This past season, 45 games, 32.9 minutes per game, 15.2 points per game, a steal, 38.4% from deep, which is right in line with the 38.3% of threes he's made during his career. The 6'4" shooting guard can also play point guard at times. Averaged 16.6 points per game throughout his career, so he's always been able to put the ball in the basket. As I mentioned, though, has struggled to stay on the court. His rookie year, he played something like 75 games, but in the 7 seasons after that, 62, 56, 9, 42, 64, 61, 45. So in the last 7 years, the most games he's played is 64. That means he still missed 18 games during that season. So, a guy who can command a lot of money on the free agent market, but, teams will be weary of the fact that he just hasn't been able to stay on the court. Will be interesting to see if the Pelicans are interested in re-signing him or if he moves on to another team. So, number 3, Eric Gordon. Number 2 on the list, and this guy's a former Defensive Player of the Year. As a matter of fact, he won that award just 2 years ago in the 2013-14 season. He was also first-team All-NBA. That's Joakim Noah of the Chicago Bulls, unrestricted free agent. Starting to get a little up there in years, 32 years old he will be. Next February 25th, so quite some time until that happens. But, just a guy who wasn't able to stay on the court past couple of years, especially last season. 24 games, 21.9 minutes per game, 4.3 points per game, still 8.8 rebounds, 3.8 assists. So, he's a great passing big man, 6'11", 232-pound center. Also plays power forward. Had, of course, as I mentioned, that stellar 2013-14 season. Definitely still one of the better defenders in the NBA when he's able to stay healthy. Wasn't putting the ball in the basket last season. He's done it before, though. For his career, per 36 minutes, 11.4 points per game, 11.5 rebounds, and 1.7 blocks per game. I think it's likely that he leaves the Bulls, and reports are that it's likely that he leaves the Bulls, just hasn't been happy with what the front office has done over the past few years, believes it's time to move on. A guy who's been seen kind of as the heart and soul of the Bulls over the past few seasons. Still a great defender. sure there'll be a team out there that will give him a large sum of money. My Knicks have actually been rumored to possibly be